Hi, Dad. How are you?
Hey, doing pretty good.
We had a nice little walk just now around Tall Timbers. We're still in Lovejoy here.
We are, and we had finally we met our medical oncologist yesterday afternoon to discuss the treatment at the Althon Cancer Center, which is in Augusta nearby.
Yeah.
And they have this really nice setup for administering the cocktail, the very exotic cocktail.
Yeah. And boy, did we find out some stuff that we didn't know was happening, and things we thought were happening weren't happening. And you called me. I had to stay home to teach some Zoom guitar lessons, but you guys FaceTimed me.
Right.
And so I was able to
be there
kind of virtually. And I actually sat here up in the studio and set up the microphone and recorded the whole thing.
That's awesome.
Because we've had many conversations after these meetings. Well, he said 6 weeks. I thought he said 4 weeks. I thought he said 5.5 weeks. I thought it was 8. And
actually, it's good stuff to have for what we're doing here too. You can piece in some actual conversations with a doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. P, we'll call him. Doesn't matter.
What's his name is kind of weird.
Pokenhorn
or something?
Pokenhorn. Yeah.
I didn't get that on the call yesterday.
No,
the audio was pretty bad, but
Pokenhorn.
Dr. Pokenhorn.
Yeah, I know. Wow. It's an English name because I asked him about it. Anyway, Dr. P was brought in his nurse navigator and a student. It's following him, shadowing, which I find kind of interesting because these are pretty personal moments, but didn't bother me. So anyway, there's a lot of, why don't you tell me what's going on, which is pretty standard procedures just to make sure, even though they know, they want you to seem like you know.
Right.
See if we're all on the same boat with things.
Right. So you went through all the same stuff we've gone through a bunch of times of like, when did this start and how are you feeling now?
Yeah.
And what did you do? And what are your drugs? And have you had surgery before? And and all these things that seemed, sort of novel. Well, not novel, but like seemed to make a lot of sense, when we were doing some of these first meetings. And now that I've been a part of several of these meetings with you, it's like, oh my God. Like,
here we go again.
Here's, an hour and a half of a meeting with 5 minutes of the stuff that you
really
care about.
Right.
But
well, a little more than that. It's okay. That's just a part of the procedure, and I understand they want to make sure that everybody's on the same line. And he had talked to Dr. Fitzgerald extensively about this treatment and how to go. And we got a little interesting news because today I was supposed to go down and have this procedure to put a port in.
Well, that's what we thought.
That's what we thought
it was.
But apparently it was for another more involved operation where you actually was going to put a scope in there again and look for any lingering cancer cells. Is the way I heard that.
Yeah. I didn't totally understand, but it was like they were going to go into your belly button, and poke around some more.
Poke around and see if there was any, latent or radical cells floating around.
Stuff that they wouldn't have found with the other tests.
Right.
But then Dr. P was like, there's about a 10% chance that they ever find anything that way.
Right.
And so you're like, nah, I think I'll not be poked in the belly button.
Especially in this age of COVID and everything, why subject yourself to more possibilities of having infection? Anytime you open up, it's a good chance to get infection. And I went, nope, don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And he showed me the CAT scan, which is the first time I'd seen it. And
that was the first time I'd seen it too. That was interesting to really see the imaging. I was thinking that we were going to get a lot more of that right away, printouts or something like you get in an X-ray where they show you, okay, here's the mass, but they really haven't done that, and it sounds like we've found out that they.
I think you have to ask for it. You have to say, I want to see it. I work better visually, and if I know what it looks like and what I'm seeing, it's easier for me to focus on that when I'm meditating and stuff, so I can just go in there and say, white light, here comes the hose, baby.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, yes, definitely that. And also, it sounds like you need a special, computer or program that can actually read these scans. It's not just like, oh, here, I've got a GIF of this.
We'll find
CAT
out.
Scan.
They finally sent it to me, so
well, that's what they were.
I'll get a chance to see if I can see it or not.
Well, that's what. No. Yeah. You're not gonna see it.
Probably not.
You're not gonna see it.
All I want to do.
That's what the nurse navigator was saying. She's like, we can't send it to you. You can't view it. It's not. It's not in a format that is just like, oh, I can just text you this video of your CAT scan. It's like, reading the data in a certain way that allows them to image it.
But what I didn't do, and I had kind of kicked myself for, is I didn't take a photo of the screen, which I could have done, which would have showed me exactly what I was seeing, so I could view it and look at it and go, huh. But he did went around and looked at the organs and said that everything looked pretty good, that he wasn't concerned like they all said about the liver, where there was a sort of a shadow in there, but there wasn't a white cancerous spot like I was seeing in the pancreas, which was fairly small. Really, I thought it was much larger, but it's relatively small at this point. So this is good for us, and that we're getting it early on. And
well, that's what we think. That's what it seems like. They weren't willing to really say that.
Well,
you asked them.
He did say stage 2, probably.
Yeah.
After I kept pushing him on that, and he said, "Yeah, more likely it's stage 2." But they don't want to commit because they don't want you to come back and say, "But you told me that it was this, and now it's that."
Right.
So they are always guarded about how much they tell you, and they can only say, "Well, this is the way we're going to proceed, and we're looking at a cure." Not a palliative state, just so palliative just means, because I read up on this, is that we're going to keep treating you and it gives you more time, but there's not much of a chance of a cure. It's just sort of keeping it at bay for a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And then hospice would be kind of the end zone.
Where they're just keeping you comfortable.
Yeah. Right. Well, and also psychologically gives you a little more time, whatever, that is. But, I mean, he did mention that we're looking at a 50-50 opportunity here of curing it. So the idea is to get the chemo treatment and then go into surgery if that's what we need to do, because it would have shrunk enough that it makes it easier for them to go and operate.
Right.
Which I'm hoping maybe it'll go into remission before we have to go opening me up, because it's pretty intensive surgery. They cut you right down the middle and open you up and have to because the pancreas is behind the stomach and the liver and all that, so you got to move all that out of the way.
Yeah.
Kind of like a knee operation was.
Yeah, well, that's why they want to do so much chemo, to reduce the size of it so that they don't have to be slicing and dicing as much. Right. They want to just go, okay, there's this teeny little area we got to cut at, and
or how much area they have to take out.
Yeah.
So that's the down to mile marker 1 of the yellow brick road, I guess. Here we are. We had asked that, hey, we need a 2-week break here just from all of this and do something joyful, which is heading up to the Thousand Islands and getting on the downwind and doing some cruising for a couple weeks before we start the procedure around the middle of July. We'll start taking the drugs.
I was thinking we should try to introduce some cancer jokes like this one. Nurse, with this chemo cocktail, get me some mixed nuts and pretzels.
Yeah, I'll ask for that.
There's another one. Patient. How bad is it, Doc? Well, you're dying. Aren't we all? Yes, but you're dying much faster. You're like the Usain Bolt of dying.
Yeah, there's a lot of cancer humor out there. So
yeah, that's good.
It's good
that
to
helps us get...
laugh at it. So that's the update.
So sorry, I was doing that, but you were saying that in terms of, you're trying to decide which of these chemo drugs really to use, and it sounds like one might take a little longer, but it's not going to involve you coming home with. They're talking about some pump. They're going to send you home with a pump, and you got to pump for 48 hours after each treatment.
And it's a little bit.
Who knows what that means? That may just be like a little attachment thing. It may not be a big deal, but we don't really know. And so you're going to take some time to.
Well, I think I figured it out. I mean, I'm pretty well set on this. Second one, what is it? It's downstairs. Sexamar, I don't know. Anyway,
some with a G.
There was two to choose from. I took the lesser of two evils, and they're both do the same thing.
Let's get it right.
All right, this little piece of paper down there. You got it? Okay,
yeah. So yeah, the first one they talked about FOLFIRINOX.
Yes,
these are such crazy names. Full of fear.
Yeah, right.
I don't like the name of that one.
No, full of fear.
Full fear. Next.
Fear.
Yeah. And then Gemzar,
and then there's the name.
Abraxane.
That's the full name.
Abraxane. Gemzar Abraxane.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not saying that totally right, but anyway, the full fear next that's the one where you need the pump, but it sounds like it's more intense.
Well, the side effects are they both do the same thing, and I've decided I want to do the intravenous instead of put the port in right away, because I can put a port in if later. I decide that that's more comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somehow I've already got one port in me, and having another one, it's just like I'm going to be the bionic man. Just hook me up with wires and tubes and stuff. I just had this visual of some
you don't like that
robotic thing. Yeah, the more I don't. I was really, yes, it's more abnormal to me.
Sure.
Something that's like, hey man, it'd be like Sergio when he had his port and he used to pour wine in it.
No,
he did. Yeah. In fact, we took a ride down to Mexico to Alamos, and he rode in the car. We took a car with us, and Steve Luttrell was with us also. We went to Alamos, and here we are with the boys and the bikes, and we got down there, and we're having a great old party one night and drinking wine and barbecuing out at this place that let us use their kitchen. And Sergio is sitting there, pouring wine into his tube, feeding tube. And they still talk about that. They just got such a kick out of that. So Sergio got quite a buzz that night, because he couldn't tell how much he was
straight in.
Yeah, he was just, whoa. So that is that's still so part of the Sergio lore,
Oh my God.
Which is a whole nother story. Traveling in South America around the world, Russia, South America.
Yeah, Sergio's been a great travel companion for you. What an
really
amazing
great!
Man.
What amazing times we've had.
Yeah, and he's just such a force of nature. That man.
Yeah, he is. He's still around too. So now I get to join his Mortals Club, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, but that was not a chemo tube. That was his feeding tube, right, because he had throat cancer, and so he wasn't able to swallow and things like that.
That was before he got his. They call it trach.
Yeah,
his trach done. That was on another trip he wanted to go on.
Yeah, you're excited now? I mean, I think we're in a good place. You're excited to take a little break from this and go. You're going to go out to the boat. You're going to go to Downwind, which is your boat up in New York, and
right. My little home in the water, my RV in the water kind of thing. Marilis and I have been enjoying that for the last few years. Another addition to the fleet of vehicles. I don't know if we're talking about airplanes or boats now, so I don't know where you want to go with this. Can talk about the boat.
I want to talk about how you're feeling. I want to do our emotional barometer segment.
Okay.
Check in.
Well, it's still pretty similar. I'm doing my meditations. I'm visualizing this thing being gone. So I believe that the body has its own intelligence. So you can make your body do things that you didn't think it could. Mm-hmm. And that's in healing also. Mm-hmm. I found that whenever I had a cold, whenever I've had a little blip in my health or something, which has never been major, I just focus on it and it makes it feel better, even with my knees and recovering from my knee operations. So I am just holding that course of really focusing. I explained to them and I said, I really do well with visual stuff. Oh, can you hold that for a second?
Yeah, let's get it. Want to record anyway.
Well, what a pleasure to hear from you again.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, you're going to get sick of me.
Oh, I doubt it. No.
So I'm just calling Dr. Polkinghorn. We're in the process of putting orders in, but he wanted me to just verify with you that when you left yesterday, he was under the impression you wanted some time to think about which chemo you wanted. So he's just wanting me to verify that you do want the Gemzar or Abraxane.
We've talked about it, and it seems to me I keep going back to that one. I think that's the way I want to proceed. And team over here of KDA is all on board with that. So
it's your body, dude.
It's my body.
It's your body, your choice.
Your body, your choice. But they're behind it. So I think that's the way we want to go. So let's start off, and we won't do the port right away. Let's try the intravenous first and see how that goes. And then if I find it's really uncomfortable, or we can always do a port, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Is there any difference in terms of doing intravenous or the port in terms of the effectiveness of the drug?
No.
Okay.
No, the only thing,
it's just a portal.
We use ports primarily because people have poor venous access, peripheral venous access. But there are certain drugs, and Abraxane and Gemzar are not these types of drugs that can damage tissue if they accidentally leak into the tissue. Mm-hmm. And those are, not these drugs, but sometimes a port is chosen if that particular or those particular drugs are given because it goes into a very large vessel in the chest.
Right.
Gotcha.
And I have good veins. I can see them right now. So okay, is it a large needle or a little needle or no? It's just a normal.
Pretty little.
Just the same thing that they use to take blood, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that. And then you just have to sit still for a couple hours.
Right.
Well, what is it you
go to the bathroom.
Yeah, well, you put something in there, right? It's a catheter type thing?
Yes. It's a plastic catheter. So
right.
There is a needle in the center. They pull the needle out.
Right.
Leave the plastic catheter in.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's just to get it in. Okay. I think that's the plan of action, and I'm feeling comfortable with that. So
sounds good.
So we'll go from there, and then I'll just wait to hear from you next about when I'm going to come in and get my education.
Yes, we're working on that right now.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll hear from you again. It's always it's a pleasure to hear your voice. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Gary. That was Gary, our nurse navigator.
Nurse navigator. We got her recorded. So
she's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary.
Daily interaction.
Okay, so so we were just you were just saying you're feeling pretty good, and
I'm feeling very positive right now too. I mean, I'm feeling we're doing between the diet and the exercise that we're getting every day. I'm feeling strong and getting myself prepared to go down the KDA yellow brick road. I don't know what we're going to find at the end. Is the voice in the castle some charlatan or somebody that really knows what they're doing, that really has the magic answer to life? So, who knows? It's a fun way to look at it, is to keep these things as a a mystery to be unraveled and solved, and look at the ups and downs of the whole process. So this whole conversation helps a lot, just telling the stories and also where we're at and where we'd like to go, and sharing this abundance of love that is coming out of the whole thing. Sometimes you go through life just thinking, I don't know if I've really made a difference anywhere. And then all of a sudden you find out you've touched a lot of people's lives. And you start hearing from them about, hey, this is what you meant to me. So all of that energy is really incredibly helpful to me.
Yeah.
It keeps me calm. In fact, the nurse, when she was taking my blood pressure, she was surprised that my blood pressure was like 133 over 76. She said, "You're pretty calm for being in a cancer room here, discussing about your situation.
Yeah.
You'd expect more anxiety." And I go, "No, not really anxious. I'm just, I'm focused on getting rid of this." So, that's where we're all here to do.
It's great.
And that's what I want to be doing. And
you're not giving it any power. You're not giving it any power over you. The negative thoughts and
and going,
fear.
Woes of me or whatever. It's like, no, okay, this is my focus now, is getting myself back to where I've always been, which has been a healthy individual, and having some more adventures in life. And in order to do that, I got to take a time out here and, take this journey.
Right. And it's so interesting, Dad, because I feel like I'm on a parallel path right now, going through some of the things I'm going through in my life with relationships and career. And this all happened in a moment where I'm taking some time to focus on myself. And it's interesting because it's like I feel like I'm also like, okay, there's a lot more that I want to do, but I gotta sort some stuff out before I can do that. And I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do in life and be fully present for all of that until I get through some of this stuff and get some of the toxins out. I feel full of toxins. That's what I was meditating on this morning, Oh, hey, Gary's back. Hi, Gary.
Gary's back. Hi again. You must have a time for me.
Is this Charles?
Yes, it is.
All right. So, yes, this is Wynette calling from
Dr. Wynette. Okay.
It's not Gary. So
No. You're the scheduler.
Gary.
Right.
I am the scheduler.
It always comes up as Gary because that's the name I put in, and it's the 61. The phone number is the same. Okay. Great. What do you have for me?
I have for you before the 29th, tomorrow at 1:50.
Tomorrow at 1:50.
Can you do tomorrow at 1:50? That's the only time I have available.
Well, then I will be there. I'll be down there, and I'm at your.
Second call.
No. It's no call. I'm just going to cancer center. And is there anything I need to bring? Just myself and. Just
yourself. If you want to bring somebody with you, that's very welcome. They just need to be over the age of 18.
I think we got that covered.
Going to be showing some illicit videos or something? What's happening?
No. Dylan. That is June. My son has a great sense of humor. 150.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. It sounds awesome. And
tomorrow.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay. How about that?
There we go.
One thing is, things do move quickly at times. All of a sudden you say, well, today I want to do this, tomorrow, and we will, and we'll get some of that in there, but then I got to be ready to go at 1 o'clock and head out. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's wild how many things we're just like, we don't know what's going to happen this week, and then they call you, and you're like, okay, I guess we're going there.
Yeah.
Good thing you're not working during all this. You know what I mean? Like, how fortunate that you are retired and that Marilys can work remotely however, and that I can be working remotely right now, even though that's still preventing me from being at some of these things, but at least I can be here present with you. And can you imagine trying to do this and juggling your job and stuff, how much just take a lot longer?
Well, yeah, I would just have to clear my schedule. And this one thing I've learned in this process is that everything is hurry up and wait. And then, you're just, and tomorrow's is just to get educated about how this whole process is going to work.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do. Another step in the ongoing process here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that was great what you were saying. I mean, I thoroughly believe that things kind of happen for a reason, and this brings people closer together. It shares the love out there that many people have for me, and my opportunity is to get healthy and give it back, because that's ultimately what you do. I think if you go through this, that you can be an advocate for somebody else down the road.
Yeah. Yep.
So, that'll may change my whole perspective of how I'm seeing things.
Yeah.
Certainly having a lot more empathy for anybody else that has to deal with this. And, and in your situation, I think in some odd, interesting way, it's helping you, because you're seeing, oh, this is really important shit. Some of this other stuff isn't as important, and taking time out and doing it is incredibly important, because it's giving you a stronger rudder as you go through your journey. You're going to say, wow, I went through that with Dad. Now I know what that's all about. And and this is how I need to deal with my stuff too, with the similar attitude.
Yeah. Is
a positive, like this is going to be a good outcome, and not getting yourself worked up about, am I making the right decision? I don't know. What should I do? and what you do is you just kind of look at it hard and say, this is the outcome I want. And I think that's true for anybody, is that you have to say, what kind of outcome do you want, and how do I get there?
Right.
So that's all I have to say on that, as Forrest Gump would say.
All right. Well, that was a great little segment there where we caught up about that. Are you ready to move on to our stories of the past?
Okay. Let's go to the airplane stories.
Okay, yeah, that was sort of where we left off last time, was talking. We had gotten sort of right up. Somehow we meandered into you and Alan.
Alan Amick, yes.
Yeah, and how you had. We got right there. We were right on the precipice of starting to dive into the airplane years, and we had talked about how you first got interested in it all the way back when you were in Africa, and you were flying around in some of these small planes, and you're going, oh, that's cool. And one of the pilots would let you sort of fly a little bit when you were up in the air, and so it always been in the back of your mind. And then all of a sudden this
opportunity came along.
Yeah, the opportunity came with Alan, and so let's talk about that. Tell me how that came about.
Well, in life, there's always opportunities that present themselves, and it's like you either say, yeah, let's grab onto that tail and go with it, or you go, oh, no, I probably can't afford that, or I can't. You make excuses in life not to do things. One of the things that I've always been open to is to take advantage of opportunities that come my way, not knowing where they're going or anything, but just to do it. And this was one of them, where we knew his brother, Marty Amick, and he was part of a meditation group that Marilys was a part of at one time. And so when Alan came to town, Marty was introducing him around, and he and I kind of clicked really nicely and started talking about flying, because he was a newly minted CFI, which is Certified Flight Instructor. And I said, I have always been interested in flight. Why don't we go fly? So he said, well, let's do an intro here. Okay. And we rented an airplane out at the Portland Jetport. It's the same airplane that I ended up buying down the road. But for me, it was a whole new thing. And he took me up and he kind of showed me how to fly, how to turn, how to, bring it to a stall, basics of landing an airplane, taking it off, pre-flight, all these things. I mean, flying is just not like getting in a car and putting it in drive and going down the road. And you got a brake and accelerator. There's rudders and there's ailerons and there's parts of the airplane you have to understand the aerodynamics of.
Yeah, it's much more three-dimensional.
It is.
Because you're, a car, you're on the ground, you're going forward, you stop.
Hopefully you don't hit anybody, I mean, in an airplane, the problem is that if you don't do the right things, you can lose control pretty easily and spiral into the nearest obstacle down below you.
Right. Yeah, you've got nothing below you, and there's all the wind and the weather elements affect you so much more than in a car. I mean, a car, sure, you got the road slippery, you're going to slide around.
Put on the windshield wipers when you go in the rain. Yeah,
it's windy, you'll feel that a little bit, but it's not. You're not making these massive adjustments like you are in a plane.
Yeah, you have to deal with the attitude of flight, and understanding the principles of what makes the airplane fly and what makes it not fly.
Right.
So when you get into flying an airplane is just one part of it. You have to understand the rules of the road, so to speak, the regulations and what the FAA puts out there, and
where you can fly, how high, how low.
Oh, yeah, from clouds, from you have to learn how to navigate, and this is before GPS was out there. Right. You have to fly it to the Loran station radio waves,
and you gotta kind of like submit flight plans ahead of time, kind of. I mean, not like.
In the beginning, you do. You put it, especially in the Northeast Corridor, which is Maine is a part of, and you want to fly in through New York airspace. You have to be able to talk to controllers, and if you have a flight plan, you have to file it, and then you have to follow those directions going from one Loran station to another.
Right.
So it's
you
not
have to be in touch with the towers and things as you're going.
It's called ATC, air traffic control.
Right.
Yeah, and. They could be a tower. It could be an office building somewhere. That they have radar screens and they can see traffic in the way. And you have transponders, which is another way of identifying your aircraft. So you have radios. You have to know how to talk, and be clear and succinct in a very immediate way. No hemming or hawing. You got to say, I'm here at this altitude and I'm traveling in this direction and what your intentions are.
Right.
Where am I going next?
Right. That's sort of what I was getting at when I was saying a flight plan that plan. You can't just get up there and zing around and do whatever.
Well, you can, like in Arizona, I don't make any flight plan. I haven't in years. I just get up and go.
But you're still talking.
Oh, I have the radios on. I have a frequency for the airport, but I'm not talking to air traffic control unless I want to. If I want flight following somewhere, just so in case something does happen, they know where I am. If I were to fly to Florida, I would probably do flight following, which is not actually filing a flight plan because I may not know where I'm going to end up. But I'm on this course and they hand you off and they have you on the radar. So they know we got this Cessna 172 traveling eastbound at this altitude, and other aircraft they can let know that I'm here. They'll let me know that, you got an aircraft off at your 10 o'clock at about 2 miles, and in a similar altitude. Mm-hmm. So you can be alert to what's going on.
Right.
But generally, in the beginning, I certainly filed flight plans and talking to ATC all the time because it was a safety thing. And it also gave you confidence that you had some other eyes out there.
Right.
When I got out to the West and I had several thousand hours, I wasn't as concerned about that, because I knew I was going from airport to airport, and I knew the terrain, and I was pretty aware of where I was, and I knew there wasn't much traffic. So, it was talking about an adventure. That was a whole new thing. It was 1992, and I was just I got very excited about it. So as always, I threw myself into it. I got the course instructions on videotape, VHS tapes at that time, and started studying and listening and practicing and going out and flying with Alan and getting my chops down as far as, doing landings, because at first, your first landing is always like, oh my God, I don't want to screw this up. And even though you got him over in the right seat, it's still, you want to try and get it right.
And
so it's practice.
Bad stuff can happen in an instant. Too. So
it's a learning process, like with you and music. It's to get good at it, you have to practice it.
Sure.
And you have to do a lot of it. And so we mixed the written stuff, and he would prep me for the written test, and it would drive me crazy because tests are not exactly my greatest skill. Because these multiple choice questions, there's always something that, well, it could be that, or is it this? And you have to look at the wording and be very precise on what that wording is to get it right. So therefore, you really have to memorize, read this stuff over and over again. And after a while, once you're flying, it all makes sense because you can interrelate it together. So that was I did it quite quickly within 4 months. I think I started in January of 92, wintertime. Great time to start flying. Why not? Take the worst weather. And by April, almost by around my birthday, I had my pilot's license.
Wow.
I got it. Just because I focused, and that's what I wanted to do, is get that done. So I'm using this airplane, this 172, basic four-seater high-wing airplane that is a solid aircraft. It's been proven that it's been around since the 50s, and they're very good, solid, because all airplanes have to go through FAA approval and get certified. So I was always pretty comfortable in this airplane. It was a flight school. It'd been in the flight school for a long time, and it was well maintained. Every 100 hours, it would get an inspection. So around about after I got my license and I started flying extensively, more and more, I was out almost all the time. I had the good fortune of an intuition to take a camera along. And I started making photographs of the landscape below because I was fascinated by it and all the depths and dimensions that you see from up there, and especially towards later in the day when you get shadows and the shapes they make and everything. So I was getting some pretty nice photos, and I decided to send them off to a publisher suggesting doing an aerial photography book on Maine. And lo and behold, they were quite interested, because this was a time when there hadn't been any books done on this, and it was a novel approach to doing a story about Maine. I called it Views from Above, and so it was called Maine: A View from Above. And they said, let's do a book. So that was the beginning of doing 11 books, in the end, over a period of 13, 14 years or something. But in order to do that, and I knew that I was going to be going to different places, I needed to get more add-ons to my license. There's sign-off, like for getting to be instrument rated, which is flying by instruments alone in cloudy or inclement weather, and so you would fly by your instruments and never even look outside. It was all done by scanning your instruments and knowing exactly where your airplane was. So that was another new challenge. That was even more intense. You got to learn a lot about weather and icing and all kinds of different things and since I was in the Northeast, I wanted it because I had a lot of inclement weather here.
Yeah.
Especially in the wintertime. So I managed to get a sign-off on instrument rating, and then I decided to continue on and get a commercial rating just to even have more knowledge.
Yeah.
Basically, you can take people for hire or something,
right.
But you have to, there's an added risk to all that, so you have to, get this rating. And then on to even getting a twin engine, only so I could fly maybe in the right seat as a co-pilot. I didn't really want to own a twin engine or anything, but I just wanted the rating in case the opportunity came up. And somebody says, hey, I'm delivering an airplane. You want to come along as co-pilot? And so you would do that, and then you have increased you have to get your medicals. So every 2 years for my kind of flying, I had to get a sign-off on that I was in good health and everything. So I proceeded along with that, and I started building hours. I decided that I wanted to, what happened was that the guy that owned the flight school had 3 planes, and he also had a little airline thing going, and he was running into financial problems. So he wanted to sell the 172, which I was flying, and it was also IFR rated aircraft. And
what does IFR rated mean?
That means that it was flight rules. So it was instrument. You have special instruments for navigating when it's inclement weather, where you use Loran, and you have radio signals, and you match them up so you stay on the right course. It's kind of like going down the road, like GPS you use now gives you a line. Mm-hmm. So you put these intersecting radio waves together, and that shows you where you are. And if you're going towards it or away from the station, or when you're landing and you can't see the runway, it tells you how far down you are if you're on a glide path, a correct glide path and everything.
And that's something, so those are instruments that not every aircraft has.
No, like the current airplane I have, it's not IFR certified. It could be, it's just you got to put some more modern day instruments in there to make it certifiable. So you have to fly in basically clear weather. But then in Arizona, it's like 360 days of clear weather. So
you're not running into that issue too often.
Well, you have to also get yourself recertified every year just to say that you're up to snuff. Mm-hmm. And with the rules and regs and everything of that. And I didn't want to keep that up. But that was long. For years, I did do that, for at least 15 years. So I was made aware that this airplane was for sale, and I showed an interest. And at that time, we had Merrill's Free Clothing Designs, and I had a relationship with a bank, and I talked to them, and they said that they would finance it. I think it was like $30,000 at that time, which seemed like a lot of money, but hey, But the good thing about this whole thing is that they still wanted to keep the airplane in the flight line, so we had an agreement that I would lease back the aircraft when I wasn't using it to them so they could use it for training.
Oh.
So what that really did was
paid for it.
It did. It paid for all of the insurance and the maintenance that came up. That would be deducted from the flight hours. In other words, I would get a percentage of it. I think it was like maybe 40 or 50%, and then they took the other part for them, but they, with the idea that they would insure the plane and do all of the maintenance and everything as part of the program. It may not have been 40 or 50. I can't remember what the percentage, but it was
either way. It seems like a great deal.
It was a good deal. I mean, it was perfect. And I could sign off on the airplane anytime I wanted it for my own personal use. And I just paid fuel, So there the airplane was being taken care of and everything, and I just flew it. I liked that. And also, at that time, you were in Ann Arbor, and I wanted to fly. I flew out there all the time to come see you. So instead of going to airlines, which would have taken me through Detroit and then having to get to Ann Arbor, I could just fly right to the Ann Arbor airport, rent a car, and bingo, there I was.
There you were. Yep, I remember that. I remember those days.
Right, and that was a huge advantage. So I got really focused with my photography and doing aerial stuff, and that became my grand destiny, was to be an aerial, doing these books and making these great images, There's just nothing like teaching yourself how to fly and photograph at the same time. So I'd have to trim the airplane up and slow it down and be right on it. And at the same time, I'm looking down, trying to find my shot. And then my window would open. I'd grab my camera and I go, great shot, boom, and that's what I did for years. I was, like a barnstormer. I was bombing all around the state of Maine, getting to see all these great places. And we did the Maine View from Above, and then there came the next book, I think, was Lighthouses from Aloft, and then there was the Maine coast from Kittery to Calais, and there was
you did before all
Massachusetts.
That. I think you did Massachusetts.
No. Well, in between that too, I had the publisher was really enjoying this, and they were selling well the books. So we had Vermont and Massachusetts and 3 books in Maine.
I thought those came before the Maine Kittery to Calais one.
Somewhere in between. I can't tell you the exact.
I remember that. I remember that maybe. Third Maine book kind of having a new.
Well, the very last one was Guess Where from the Air, which was the last one I did on Maine. So I did 4 books.
I don't know about that one. I don't think I've ever even seen that one.
With the puzzle in it and the cover? I'll have to show it to you.
Yeah.
It's down there.
I don't even know about that.
Yeah, it was called Maine, Guess Where from the Air, and it was the very last book I did. But what turned out next is the fun part. So anyway, I'm flying around the airplane, and I went to Oshkosh. And, of course, I knew some other aviators in town, so I had we would gather and go to the sort of the Disney World for, airplane nuts, airplane guys, people that loved to fly and couldn't get enough of it. And so Oshkosh was the gathering spot every July. And you would fly out there and camp out under your wing. And then there's exhibits and air shows, and it was an amazing amount of energy going in that place. And one of the trips out there, I was thinking about another kind of slower aircraft that I could use to make it easier to take these photos. And I came across this gyroplane company. And gyroplanes are kind of like a poor man's helicopter. They perform much like a helicopter, except they can't do a true lift. They work on the basis of stick and rudder, but yet you can bring it up to, it doesn't stall, so you can bring it up to really slow flight. Mm-hmm. And that made it really nice because I could use my rudders to turn on a dime. And I took, this was called Rotary Air Force, this is about 1995. So I took a demo flight, and I just fell in love with it. You could fly low, fence level. It was, to me, perfect tool for doing this aerial work. Plus, it was novel. Not a lot of people knew about gyros. They actually had been around for a while. Amelia Earhart had flown one off the White House lawn back in the 1920s.
Really?
But it was a biplane that they just took the wings off and had a pillion, and there was a blade. So if you ever seen those ball caps or kids used to wear with the little, propeller on top,
sure,
that was kind of what it was all about. Because you get your lift by going down the runway, and then the air coming under the blades lift you like a wing and hold you up.
And there's no actual motor that rotates the top blades. You have a propeller in the back that gives you some forward momentum.
Right.
But then the rest of it is just physics at work.
Exactly. And you use a pre-rotator to get it going, which is just a little handle and clutch. It looks pretty simple nowadays. They have it with little motors that make it go round. And that's called getting the blades up to speed. And that's once you got them up, you let it go, and it's just the wind, the airspeed that keeps it held up.
Right.
But the difference is that a helicopter is powered, so it has a blade that is putting torque out there so it can do a lift.
Right. But that's where they get the danger, because they need that motor to keep the blades going.
They become a gyroplane if something happens to the motor. They go into auto rotation, which is shifting the blades to a different attitude, so it takes the air coming up to hold it up there. Instead of pushing it down, it's now using the air to keep the lift up.
Right.
So
you don't get quite as much leeway in a helicopter because they're so heavy. The gyroplane's so light that if your engine goes out, you have a lot of time to actually
and you do in a helicopter too. You have enough time to keep it up by just making the airspeed, keeping your airspeed up. It's basically you're still pointing it down and looking for a place to land. The beauty is that you can land in like 10 feet or something in a very small space and survive it. It can land in the width of a runway. So anyway, I became totally enthralled with this. I got down from my intro flight, and being the spontaneous guy, I just took out a credit card and put a deposit down. I said, this is for me. This is what I want. And that began a whole new adventure. Building it with some help from a guy named Curtis Patton, who lived down in Georgia, where the kit was sent. And then I would go down there and work with him in building this machine, learning all about it, and also learning to fly it properly.
Right.
So that was months of back and forth going down and doing this. But I was getting my chops down, and and then along the way, and I don't know if we have the time to get into this, would be the idea of, has anybody ever, crossed the country in one of these? And apparently nobody had just single-handedly flown from airport to airport in a gyroplane, because most of them have been kind of like long lawn chairs with an engine on top, and this was a 2-seater enclosed cockpit, perfect cross-country kind of machine. And he said, no, I don't think so. And I said, So I started looking into seeing if, in fact, anybody had done this, and I came up with this idea of touching down in all 48 states, called the Spirit of American Youth, with the idea of getting sponsors along the way that would host us, and then also have a gathering and bring kids out to check these machines out.
Yeah.
And this was the early part of the internet, too, when it was still over the telephone lines. And so we were going to document this thing and had an early website called say2000.org.
Yeah. I remember this.
Yeah. You were around for that. Mm-hmm. Of course you were. So that was a year of planning and putting this trip together and documenting it. I still have all the CDs. I mean, I had videotapes then, but I transferred them all to DVDs. So, and then finally I put it on a hard drive. So I need to edit that someday. That's
top of the list.
Oh God, not right now.
You did.
But I have all the material. I mean, it was a fascinating.
You never
journey.
did a little short.
Well,
I thought there was a short thing that you did.
There was some short stuff done by news organizations because I got TV coverage in a lot of this, and I was able to get that footage, and I've used that. Also, I was on the CBS Sunday morning. It's called Postcards from Maine, is when Tim Sample would do these little snippets of stories in Maine. And so I got featured on one of those, and that was really quite interesting. So it opened up a very period of time of amazing opportunities to see the country from 500 feet.
Yeah.
I still remember going through L.A. at about 200 feet, which, because I did. Yeah. In fact, it's on the video. And
200 feet.
I know, but I was in the helicopter zone. I was able to talk him in and got on the helicopter frequency. And so I was gyrocopter 7234 uniform. So they thought I was a little helicopter. RAF, I don't know. All right, well, clear to go at this altitude at, because the helicopters could fly low because all the other aircraft had to be up high.
But 200 feet, you could fly that. You could be flying like in between buildings and stuff.
Yeah, between 200 and 500. Where you go up and down, up and down. You could fly at that level, 200 to 500 feet. They would allow you to do that. And
you didn't get close to downtown or anything, did you?
Flew right through downtown L.A.
Like between buildings and stuff.
Well, not between buildings, but I flew right along the freeway. Downtown L.A.
All right.
No, but not through the building. No.
I was gonna.
They wouldn't let you do that.
No.
Hey, what's this thing going by here?
On top of the highway, that feels like more than 200 feet.
Yeah. But you got to remember, this is around 2000, before 9/11, so you could fly lower and do things that you can't do now.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, you could. No, I flew through some pretty low spots. I mean. Wow. But anyway, in that journey across the country, I got some ideas about doing other books in other places.
Right.
And that's where doing the Napa Valley book and the Sonoma book came up, was from my experience of staying there and looking at the wineries and saying, wow, here's an opportunity because they have a built-in audience and they have a retail shop. Right. All these wineries sell stuff.
Right.
So why not do a book? And the idea for that germinated after that 2000. And I hooked up with a friend of mine who's a graphic designer, Ernie Rose. Mm-hmm. And together we came up with, let's put, viewsfromabove.com books together.
Yeah.
And we went around and we negotiated with the wineries to, if they bought 100 books, they could be in the book. And they'd just pay us the wholesale price, but they had to buy 100. So we had quite a few of those, and then we had some that one guy wanted 5,000 books for his wine club. So we were in, like Flint. This was a great model for doing your own publishing company, but not having to do the traditional route of like publishers do, of selling to bookstores and everything.
Right.
Which gets complicated.
You just went direct to this.
You just went direct to them and dumped the books, and they sold the books.
Right.
So,
but then you did get the books.
It was a win-win situation.
Into bookstores and things after that as well.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah, we did. We were able to, but mostly locally.
Yeah, but that financed your ability to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
To get the book made and self-publish it.
Oh, right. No, we did quite well. And then we did a book on Sonoma.
Yep.
And then continued on and then came back east and did one on the New York State wineries in the Finger Lakes region.
That's right. The Finger Lakes.
And then in between that, I did some books in Florida with another publisher, Pineapple Press, on the Florida Keys and South Florida. And we were going to do more, but that kind of died out. So all in all, it was about 11 books all total.
Yeah.
So that's how I took this passion for flying and turned it into the last great part of my career as a photographer. Doing the aerial photography books. Yeah. And then, like all things, it finally came to an end, and it was just before drones started coming in, and drones took over all of that. They could get lower and closer, and so
that's so cool. I mean, you got in at the right time. I there did.
And I got out at the right time.
Yeah,
it's all about timing.
yeah,
it really was. I mean, I really would like to. I'm not much of an editor, but it's kind of fun to go back and relive those moments.
That could be a thing we could do. Edit that film. Anyway, we're gonna have to pause for today, but that was great. That was a great little
got you into the plane thing.
Intro into the plane world, and got a little bit of the Say 2000
and how he integrated it with the photography, which is always what I liked about photography. Is like, if you have an idea, you can go in that direction and take your talents into it with you.
Yeah.
You know, like photography. And I figured, this has always been my passport to the world is cameras. And at that time, before digital, most of these books were done with cellulose film, you know, so it was all on transparencies. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the very end that digital became something that we could made life 100 times easier. It was fascinating.
That's right. You were doing all those slides. You would go pick up these slides and then sit there with the magnifying glass and go through them.
And then put them in sleeves, and then you had to make captions.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness. Now all you had to do was just shoot, put them in your computer, and label them, and you were done.
Yeah, but geez. Did you find that you had just so much more to sort through once you had the digital?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the issue.
It was so easy.
Right, you're just like, click,
and you didn't have to
throw
change.
It away later.
Yeah, well, you had to think more when you had only 36 exposures that you could make. Right. And so you had to think because you got to change film when you're flying, right?
Yeah.
So you had a couple cameras, but it got really tactile.
Really got to wait for the right take there, the right shot.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You more or less. And then with digital, it was... still, after a while, I said, God, I got to quit shooting so much, but just because I got to sort through this.
Right.
And, so it makes you think a little harder. But when you think, not more than 100 years ago, it was, big cameras. You get one shot. You really had to think your shot out and use a 4x5 or an 8x10 camera. And bingo, and that was what you had to work with. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, you just go on and you pull up an app, and you can make it look totally different than the way you shot it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was a perfect time for me to begin to it and then out of it. And then after that, photography became something anybody could do, and now we're down to this little thing we carry around with us every day, our iPhones, and that makes perfectly acceptable photographs.
Right.
So there we are. All right, we better wrap this up because it's 3:10.
Passport to the World.
Passport to the World, that's right.
That's the title of this one, I think.
Yeah, Passport to the World. And that...
All right, Dad. Well, this was great. Thanks for...
Another good one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I don't know, recipe today?
Dad's cooking tip.
Oh, that's great.
Dad's cooking tip. Dad's cooking tip.
That's great.
Dad's cooking tip.
More of the same. I'm kind of gotten stuck in a little bit of a...
Chicken soup today.
Chicken soup for lunch, and then who knows what... we'll see what the magic for... Oh, cauliflower. Smashed cauliflower. My diet has changed from beans and coleslaw to cauliflower and beet salad. The new reality.
A new adventure. Dad's cooking tip.
Oh, that's great.
All right. I love you. Good pod today.
Good pod. Excellent. You got me right. You got me even being articulate.